Okay, now the time is 3 o'clock. Are we ready to begin? 皆様どうぞご着席ください。People standing behind and talking, please be seated and focus on the stage, please. Let us move on to the next theme. The theme is sustainable innovation, mitigating unintended environmental and social consequences of technological advancements. Now let us introduce the moderator and the speakers. The moderator will be Katsuji Imata, with over 25 years of experience in NPOs and NGOs, focuses on impact management, serving as chair of the Impact Consortium's working group and certified UNDP trainer. よろしくお願いいたします。And Heather Prosser, with 15 years in financial services and sustainability, founded the CCASS team at EY Japan and now supports ESG risk mitigation at Morrow Sodali, Japan. Heather, please, thank you very much for coming. And Yoshiaki Ishii is a PhD holder from Waseda University, promotes startup policies at the Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry, including J Startup, and continues supporting startups in his current role. Yoshiaki 先生、お願いいたします。Ishii 先生、よろしくお願いします。And Donald Eubank advises on ESG and sustainability, lecturing at Temple University and Waseda Business School with the focus on impact investing and sustainable business strategies. Thank you for coming. ありがとうございます。Alright, それでは、今田先生、お願いいたします。
Thank you. Thank you very much for your kind introduction and welcome to our panel titled Sustainable Innovation. So we've been talking about technological advancement, innovation, and what it can do for sustainable and just societies. True, indeed, that is very a valid argument. But at the same time, we always have to think about what is the potential or positive, possible negative consequences, both environmentally and socially, because of and also in spite of new technological innovation. So for this theme, the organizers have put together a very impressive panel of speakers, and I'll have them introduce themselves. But first of all, I would like to ask you, people in the audience, so that we can take a pulse of who we are speaking to. Right? So first of all, among the people here, who runs a startup? Who runs a startup company? Please raise your hand. Not so many. Yeah? Okay, who are the investors or potential investors who work on finance? Okay, not so many. Who are you? Okay, so who works for like large companies? Yeah, okay, so we have some hands. Academia, people in the academia, researchers, okay, thank you. Government officials, and then national, local, and others. Okay, so some. So we get some sense. Have we? Yeah? Okay. So with that, I will ask each of the panelists to just briefly introduce themselves first. So let's go from the Donald and come back this way.
Hi, I'm Donald Eubank. I'm the co-founder and principal of Read the Air, which is a sustainable business advisory firm. I'm also a co-author with Trista Bridges of Leading Sustainably, The Path to Sustainable Business and How the SDGs Changed Everything. The book and the business were created out of a desire to stop talking about what the problems were around climate and the environment, what the principles were, and start to talk about what were actual practical steps that businesses and investors could take to get ready for a new business environment and transform into more sustainable business models. Looking forward to the panel today.
Okay. Hello. I'm Yoshiaki Ishii. Director General of SME Support Japan. It's a great honor to be here today. And I have been working for many years in Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry. Mainly, I'm focusing on startup policy. Nowadays, Japanese government is thinking startups are driving force of our economy and society. Startup can bring economic vitality as well as they can bring solution to the social problems. So we created many startup programs. Year 2022, we created a startup development plan for 5-year plan, and we are implementing that. And innovation and that consequences is very important theme as well startup policy as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here to address you today. Thank you to my panelists and to our wonderful moderator. We did forget to ask how many consultants were in the room. Out of curiosity, there's one, two, not very many, not very many. Well, I come from a consulting background. My name is Heather Prosser. A little correction in my bio, it says I'm at Morrow Sodali, but recently we've actually rebranded, so we're Sodali & Co. It's over a 50-year-old business focusing on shareholder value, which as shareholders really started to extend their interest to sustainability, sustainability became a natural arm for the business to expand upon. So I focus on all sorts of ESG risks, opportunities, anything that our company is going to need to help them navigate this complex world. So I've been living in Japan a long time. Sustainability for me has been not only a passion, but also a vocation and a job. So I started off my sustainability journey at EY Japan. I know at least one or two of my colleagues are here. Had a fantastic, fantastic opportunity to work with both very large companies and very small companies. And I've also have a background in startups. So this is a multifaceted issue. I'm delighted to discuss how technology is both going to help and hinder us. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now let's get into this topic, the theme of this panel. So I would like to ask each of you speakers, and that we go a different order, Heather and Donald and then Yoshiaki-san. Please tell us how your work has been handling this theme of this panel, which is really the technological advancement on the one hand, and unintended social or environmental, usually negative consequences. So how to avoid that, how to mitigate that. There are different ways of handling that issue. So in what ways have you or have your clients been dealing with it, I think is a question. So first, I'll come to you, Heather. So you have been mainly supporting large listed companies to work on sustainability. How is this balancing act evolving for your clients?
It's such a great question, and honestly, it is a super difficult one to respond to because even companies within the same industry are not going to respond to challenges the exact same way. It's going to be as unique as the company DNA itself. So one of the things that we've really noticed is when sustainability became an important topic for companies, people focused mainly on risk. So they would think sustainability is going to cost us more money, we're going to have a lot of reporting, we have to look at risk. But when they look at technology, they exclusively look at opportunity. Both sides of the coin are actually incorrect because you're missing that holistic view on what are the positive or potential negative impacts. So one of the things we're really challenging companies is to look at sustainability from also a positive side, but then look at what the potential negative impacts could be from a technological innovation. Are you going to actually put a lot of people out of work? That could be okay as long as you have a transition plan as to how to repurpose their jobs, give them extra training, move them forward. But we often talk about oil and gas, and many of my friends and colleagues have said, just get rid of oil and gas. we've got the technology to do that. Well, perhaps we don't actually have the technology to immediately erase it. But what if we did? Well, what would that do? That would put whole communities out of jobs. It would decimate populations and families. So it's not as simple as looking at what's the positive and negative side. We have to look at the whole picture and think about it in a time frame as to what can be an acceptable transformation. So as I said, a very complex issue for us, but I'm encouraged because Japanese companies in particular want to take that on and really have a long-term view and define success from a longer-term perspective. So there is hope there.
Okay, a great point. It's not just about negative risks, and it's not just about the positive opportunities. You need to really take a look at everything in holistically, the whole picture. So let's keep that in mind. And I'll come to you, Donald. So from your experience, what kind of challenges are unique to startups? Let's talk about startups here.
Yeah, so we had a little internal discussion about the name of this panel, which is mitigating unintended consequences. But if you're talking about impact startups, really the idea should be that from the outset, you're designed not to create unintended consequences. You're trying to create positive social or environmental value. So there is a way to talk about this. But I think that the question of mitigation is more appropriate for larger companies. So I just want to address that quickly. If you are doing business as usual in producing a product or providing a service, then you should be looking at your materials, your sourcing, your manufacturing, and you'll probably want to be taking a circular economy perspective on that shows you ways to reduce your waste and gives you a life cycle view over the end of life of your product and where it's coming from. Or if it's services, what you can do to, if you're delivering them through a digital technology, reduce your energy use, such as who you're partnering with. Are you using a sustainable data center provider? So if you're a legacy business and you need to mitigate a problem, those are the kinds of things you do. If you're a startup and you are impact aligned, so you're already trying to create a product that's better than what's out there or trying to solve a problem, it might be that the mitigation is not around the solution that you're offering, it's around the rest of your business. So it's not what you're doing, it's how you're doing it. We had a client that had a alternative food product, so a non-meat product. So they said, here's something that shows that we're sustainable because we're actually reducing the amount of livestock that's been used, which means reducing emissions, which means changing land use. And our question to them was, well, that's great. I think that will actually have a positive impact, but how are you producing that? Or how are you operating your business in terms of how your employees are working? So even if you're setting out to do something that solves a social problem or an environmental problem, you need to be thinking about the rest of your business as well.
Okay, we might come back to that, but let's go to Yoshiaki-san now. That from your introduction, people understand that you are working for the Japanese government. And when you think about government and negative environmental social consequences, you are likely to think about regulation. And that may be the perspective you might want to come in. So from a point of view, how do you deal with this issue of balancing positive technological advancement and possible negative consequences?
Okay, thank you. Innovation brings our society prosper, but it brings also negative impact too sometimes. And actually, Japan experienced a serious problem concerning that point. In 1950s to 1970s, rapid industrialization made Japan's kind of rising sun in the world economy. Lot of factory develops lot of products and a lot of innovation happens. So people admires kind of miracle of Japan's economic development. But in the backside, lot of pollution happens, water pollutions and air pollutions. And a disease of pollution disease happens a lot of places. A lot of people suffers pollution diseases. So the government make regulation, a lot of regulation to control the consequences of that innovation and rapid industrialization. And also, government has supported mitigation technology. We provide a lot of investment to mitigating technology. That kind of stuff controls the unintended consequences of the innovation. But time goes on and new technologies emerged, disrupting technologies. In that time, we do not need regulation. We have to update our regulation. So the regulation is now other team of this problem. And I think it's a kind of circle, innovation, problem, regulation, new technology, and deregulation. That kind of circle is going on right now. And now, carbon neutralization is a top issue. And green GX, green transformation is also very important. So we are investing in that kind of stuff to bring sustainable innovation. And also, we are facing big wave of AI and Web3. And that kind of new technology changes our society. So we are thinking about regulation at the same time, thinking about deregulation, that kind of stuff. We are struggling, but we have to going on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think it's great that we have Ishii-san here in this panel speaking about the government point of view to kind of broaden up our horizon a little bit. I think when we talk about technological innovation and sustainability, of course, we are thinking about the private sector leading the efforts. But sometimes, or maybe oftentimes, of course, the government needs to come in for different reasons. 2 years ago, I believe that when the UK was the president of the G7, they have published this report of a just transition. So I would like to ask each of the speakers, the point that Heather raised, which is really, like as she talked about the oil and gas industry, but not only that, there are a set of sectors that may need to transform rapidly in order to really make this world more sustainable. And then in this coinage of just transition, I think people need to dissect this a little bit more and then think about who needs to do what. And maybe there's a role for government, there's a role for private sector. I'm sure there's a role for private sector and startups maybe in particular. And so just kind of like to open up this question of who, in this just transition, to transform this world. I think who needs to do what, and if you have any comments about that. Yeah. Anybody? Yeah, Heather, go ahead.
So I'd just like to jump in there. As delighted as I am, Ishii-san, that the government is helping to support us, I'd really prefer if we are leading this transformation. I think everyone has a role to play. I think one of the big challenges with transformation, and similar to what Ishii-san said about AI is not the problem. It's who's controlling the AI. So if you want a more sustainable world, you want your voice to be heard, make it heard in whatever capacity you can. So if you're a large company, you're a small company, you have a variety of different opportunities. So I think the point being that we all have a role to play. Now, whether that role is a very large role that is leading a company or leading a community, I think every voice that counts that moves towards just transformation to make sure all of the voices are heard it is very, very easy to hear the loud voices. Trust me, I'm American, I have a very loud voice. I'm always heard. Is that the right voice to hear? Am I representing everybody? No. But we're not going to be able to hear the other voices unless everybody takes an active part. So leaving it up to poor Ishii-san, who's doing a great job, but if we expect the government to do everything in this account, they're going to miss out because they simply cannot cover the full scope of the problem. So I would say everyone has a role, maybe not an equal role in the terms, but everyone should have a role to play.
Thank you, Heather. Donald?
I would concur with Heather. Basically, everyone has to do everything. and I say that because when we wrote the book, we identified 8 different forces that were going to make companies change. They included investors, policymakers, consumers, included new leadership on the inside, employees, different things that would make a company have to do things differently. Governments are great, but they don't move that quickly. Investors are great. They have themes that they want to follow, but there's many different types of investors out there. So I think we all have to do something. If we talk about startups in particular, I think that they need to think about what is required for them to be operating in a different environment, different business environment within 5 to 10 years. And they will find, if they look at the science behind climate change, the conditions that they physically operate in will be different, that the business environment will adjust because of it, because policymakers will step in and decide that things have to happen. So businesses for themselves can start to prepare for this, but everyone has to be thinking about what they can do to actually make sure that things are stable, both socially and in terms of dealing with whatever the results of climate change are.
I think dialogue is very important between innovators and rule makers. Concerning regulation, dialogue between private sector and public sector is very important. So we are established some system to talk about innovators and rule makers. And we have some consulting office to discussion of that kind of issue. Also, regulatory sandbox is a kind of, we can make some test to the new innovation, and we can search the consequences of the new innovation. That kind of system we introduced. And with that kind of tools, we open our dialogue and keep talk about the innovation and consequences. That kind of stuff we are trying right now.
Great. Maybe I would like to ask Ishii-san to speak up a little bit more about the initiative the Japanese government has been taking in the startup arena. You mentioned the 5-year startup plan, but at the same time, with your leadership as well, METI has initiated this new project called the J Startup Impact. So it is really a startup encouraging startups focusing on impact or impact-aligned startups. Maybe not all of the people in the audience might know this. So could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, thank you very much. Concerning regulation is very important, but the other side, promotion side, is also important. And J Startup Impact is one of the main flagship programs. We would like to promote impact startup because it can bring social solution sustainably. It can realize economic development, economic vitality, and social impact. That kind of player we need. But a lot of investors and even government people cannot recognize which startup is impact startup, important impact startup. So we select that kind of important impact startup as a J Startup Impact. As you know, government people cannot select the startup, But we have special persons in private sector. So we gathered some specialists from private sector and made a discussion, and we selected 30 important Japanese impact startup. And one of the committee member is Imata-san. Thank you, Imata-san. And we would like to select that startup and make branding. And we would like to bring more investors to that kind of cutting-edge startups. And also government can provide more support, more focus to that kind of startup. That is one thing. Usually, government policy is equal to everyone. But in this important part, we have to focus and target and promote. That kind of steps we are doing right now.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ishii-san, for that. So now we've been talking about this balancing act of positive technological advancement and possible negative environmental and social consequences. What do you see as an overarching principles, maybe, aside from your work, consulting work or otherwise, that you see forming as principles for balancing these two? Maybe we can start with you, Donald.
I think for startups, the main thing is sustainability should be included on day one. So I'm not from the technology background or the innovation background. I'm from a sustainability background. But what I can say is that if you put sustainability on a checklist of things to do and it's the last one, like, okay, we've created a new product, we've created a new idea, a new service, we've piloted it, we've prototyped it, we're ready to take it to market, is it sustainable? If the answer is no, how far back are you going to go to correct your problem? You're probably just going to go ahead with it. So the thinking should be from the beginning, we're innovating, but we're innovating in a sustainable manner. And I think that the type of thinking that you do when you come up with new products, innovative products or new technologies, is really the same as what people do when they come up with sustainable solutions. You have to think out of the box. You have to think a little bit differently. You have to think about what are the compromises I need to make to get something that's ideal for the market. So sustainability on day one, and use your innovation ability to think when you try to create sustainable solutions.
All right. I might come back to you, your number two later a bit, but Heather, same question.
I couldn't agree with Donald more on this. Absolutely nailed it. If it is something you're going to do later on, you can do that, but that's the work I have to do now. It's really, really hard to turn a ship around. So absolutely couldn't say it better. What I would caution particularly startups to consider, if sustainability is a core value for your business, that you choose the right financial partner. Make sure your investors share your values. And I think a lot of startups actually choose the money that comes to them. And there's a lot of very practical reasons why you would do that. However, 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road, you realize that your investors are only asking for profit. They really don't care about the sustainability portion of your work. Now, whose fault is that? Likely, their values and your values were misaligned from the beginning. Now, this is still a growing and changing field, so you often do have to prove to your investors that your sustainability program has a return on investment. And that can be sometimes exceedingly challenging. But if you get I was in venture capital, if you get in bed with an investor who is only going to be looking at quarterly profits, you can't always deliver that and have a sustainable company that is going to match your values. So I've seen a lot of founders fail, not because their technology is bad, but because their people lost hope in the vision of what they were doing, because they ended up going just for the technological product. So that can be really, really difficult conversation for a startup to have. You want to be successful, but I really caution you to try and find the right partner. And same if you're looking for jobs. This is a great place. certainly our organizers would say the same, you really have to consider, do your values align? And if they don't 100%, maybe that's okay, that's very difficult. Is it 75%? Okay. Is it only 10%? Does that work? Is that enough? And I think that's a very important consideration, but it's not always the most practical one, to be fair. So keeping that in mind as well.
Okay. Same question, Ishii-san.
Okay. In 5-year plan for startup development, finance is very important. So we would like to bring investors from all over the world to Japan's cutting-edge impact startups. And also, human resources key point of 5-year plan. And we would like to develop some human resources, and we would like to support human resources that can realize value from the basic technologies, research and development of the universities, that kind of stuff. And also, open innovation is very important to create strong startup ecosystem in Japan. Big corporation is a key player. So we would like to make kind of win-win collaboration between startup and big corporation. That kind of activity I would like to continue, and as well as dialogue concerning regulation and promotion of cutting-edge startups.
Great, okay. I have 2 questions. Maybe we have time for Q&A, so in the last 10 minutes, so please be ready to raise your hand if you have questions. But before that, the overarching principles, I think that they sound very good. Sustainability from day one, good alignment of values and finding right partner, and also human resource talent. I think Socials does that a good job on that already. And collaboration between the startups and big firms. So those they all sound good and nice, but maybe you might hear a question from the startups, but who's going to pay for that? Well, of course, we startups are busy. Of course, we are really making products and then trying to market and then really testing and then piloting and the prototyping. They may say, well, we don't really have time to think about the sustainability issues that because we are already impact aligned company. Donald said that you want to really think about what else is happening in your value chain, but that's going to be cannot be our priority. Who's going to bear the cost? Anybody?
I mean, I think the easy answer is that your future investors will pay for it and your future customers will pay for it. And if you don't do it, then they won't pay for it. So turn it around. But, I mean, that said, it is understood that startups, of course, have a lot of things that they're trying to do at once, so you need to have some balance here. And I think that the way to do that is you do a scaled down version of sort of sustainability assessment than what a corporate would do. So you shouldn't be expected to use some of the more robust frameworks that corporates would use, such as SASB, which looks at the most material issues in your business, or GRI, which does a full ESG metric analysis. That you look for something that's a bit simpler and more appropriate for where you are at the stage that you can manage. There's a consortium-led group out there called ESG VC that tries to simplify the ESG process for startups. Something like that is very useful. Or you can talk to someone like me that can actually say, this is useful to you, this is useful to you, this you don't need to know about. And maybe the easy way to start is look at what is material to your industry and just focus on that in terms of trying to figure out how to improve what you're doing today.
I just want to jump in really quickly on that. Couldn't agree more with Donald again, but one of the things that I think you have to keep in mind is no one expects you to be a perfect company. I have never met a perfect company in sustainability. Sustainability is not a journey. Sorry, it's not a destination. It is a journey, which means if you're perfect today, Next year, you might not be. Even in 6 months, you might not be. So I think even with my very, very large companies that I've consulted with, we usually put ambition and purpose at the forefront, knowing that we're not going to be able to solve all of the issues in year one. It's not possible. So what we try and do is look at maybe a 3-year journey of where you would like to be, but be open and honest about that. You might not be there today, but it is your goal to get here. And just acknowledge, though not perfect today, we are aware of these issues. We're trying to solve them. And also, as Donald mentioned, unlike when I started in sustainability, and maybe some of you, there's a much, much larger community of knowledgeable people out there that are really willing to kind of help out startups and are willing to donate some of their time to give you advice. So I'd recommend definitely reaching out to that. Donald put his hand up. I'm far too busy, but I can go over there.
Okay, great. So anybody has a question?
May I?
Okay, Ishii-san, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Your question about who pays the sustainability is very important. Of course, government can pay a part, but very important part is a private sector. Government can provide subsidy, and also we provide tax incentive for the sustainability. But the big part of that payment should should come from the private sector because government budget is limited. So we need some kind of consortium to talk about more investment for that sustainability from private sector and also from government. That kind of activity and movement is very important, I think.
Thank you, thank you. So do I see any hands? Questions? Yes.
Thank you very much for the panel. I'm Niklas Karonen from Nordic Innovation House. We support Nordic startups with their Japan entry. My question is particularly for you, Ishii-san. You mentioned about the G Startup Impact Program, which sounds very interesting and promising. But could you elaborate a little bit further about the evaluation process? You mentioned you have this group of experts, but what are maybe some of the metrics that you are looking into, or what are your overall goals for this program? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Wait. I think we can take one more question if you have a hand. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I own a startup here for the affordable online therapy platform to break a stigma around therapy. And Heather, when you mentioned the downside of the development, the technology, the one thing I face is the privacy. One is because people just afraid of like the privacy, what's going on inside, and also like Japanese, I think unique too is like they have limited private space to do online therapies, and also I have a business plan too, and then that is so they want to know what their problem is, which kind of contradicts the benefit of therapy. And I think that's really unique to Japan, and I really appreciate your insider thoughts that would be, challenges to having this online therapy business in Japan.
Okay, great. So first question to Ishii-san, second question, Heather. Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you. J Startup Impact is very important policy programs for now. And actually, at the beginning, we are thinking about the big corporation of Japan, big corporation Japan, that kind of stuff. But a lot of metrics we have to create to make big corporation Japan. And also, it is not fit to the Japanese startups. So we create more simple measurement. And we think these parts are very important parts from benefit corporation metrics. We introduced that one. And at the same time, we consult with many key players among that policy area. And we made some selection committee. And benefit corporation's basic part and selection committee's discussion selected 30 startups. It's a kind of some starting point of our trial. So we would like to make more discussion to make the J Startup Impact more effective. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. That's a super tough question and a really, really interesting business that you have. It's a really difficult one because in my old life at EY, we did a lot of work, or I did a lot of work with the insurance companies. And I see a lot of people in the audience very similar to me having a smartwatch that's tracking my data. How much of that do I want to share? How much of that could be beneficial to share? How much about my body should be known because it would be useful to society or actually useful to me? I think these are big questions that we need, maybe not Ishii-san's department, but we definitely need the government involved in as well. Europe is a little bit leading in this in the sense of the right to be forgotten, to have your digital footprint forgotten for companies. So I think what you're going to get down to is two things. One, you've got to change the hearts and minds of people around what ultimately will be done with their data and could be done with their data, having strict guardrails around that. But then also, to be perfectly honest, being able to have the opportunity for people to opt out. I think that's hugely important. When the power is back with the people, I think most people, as long as they know that the power is theirs to take away, will probably be more open to sharing their information. So when we have those opportunities to be building a business where you rely on a huge amount of private data, securing the privacy and allowing control and being ultimately very, very transparent about it, I think we're still not quite there yet. You're struggling in a difficult place, but we'll get there.
Thank you. Thank you for the question and for the response, Heather. I think that's a very important aspect of the consequences, possible consequences of technological innovation we all need to bear in mind. So we only have 45 seconds. So Ishii-san and Heather responded to a question. So I'd like to give you, Donald, the last word for this panel, please.
I mean, I think I just go back to sustainable from day one. Align yourself with a goal, but also make sure that everything around it and behind it is just as good as whatever that goal is. And if you're having difficult starting, just try something, talk to someone, and there's lots of people with solutions out there that can help you along your sustainability journey.
Okay, so thank you very much for joining this session. Very, very important topic that we discussed today. So again, thank you for your participation, and please give a round of good applause for the distinguished, very, very good presenters, speakers today. Thank you.
ありがとうございました. Thank you very much. Now we would like to move on to the photo session, so if you can rise. Great smiles. Thank you so much. ありがとうございました. Everybody, please give a round of applause to Imata-san, Ishii-san, Donald, and Heather. Thank you very much. ありがとうございました.